In the last section, we broke down the contents of our Docker file and got an understanding of the overall contents or structure of it. We now know that there's a handful of instructions that we can use to customize how our image is built. These are three of the most important instructions to know, and we'll introduce a handful of other ones over time. In this section, I now want to kind of break down what was really occurring behind the scenes with each of these instructions. We're going to first begin by taking a look at a little analogy. So this is going to be an analogy to help you understand the structure or purpose of those lines of configuration inside that Docker file. So, quick analogy. I'm going to tell you writing a Docker file is a little bit just like being given a computer, so a brand new computer with no operating system on it, and being told to install Google Chrome on there. So I want you to imagine what you would do if I handed you a computer that has no operating system on it, and I told you you have to install Google Chrome on here. Well, here is probably what you would end up doing. The first thing you might do is try turning on that laptop or turning on that desktop. And when you turned it on, you would probably maybe see some boot up process, but then you would eventually be given a message that says something like, hey, sorry, no bootable drive or no operating system. I'm just an empty computer. I don't know what to do. So the first thing you would probably do is install an operating system. You need an operating system on that computer in order to go through all these sequential steps on here. If you want to download Google Chrome, you have to go and download it from somewhere by opening up your web browser. And you have to navigate to chrome.google.com. You have to download the installer and open a file explorer and then execute that installer. So those series of steps right there, those are all steps that are facilitated by the installation of that initial operating system. If you didn't have an operating system, there would be no default browser to start up. You would not have a file or folder explorer to start up, and you probably would not have any way to run an executable file. All of these steps are kind of preceded or dependent upon having an initial operating system. So then going through all those initial steps, eventually you would be able to execute the Chrome executable and start up that browser. So these steps right here, very similar to what we just did inside that Docker file. When we specified that base image of Alpine, that was a lot like installing an initial operating system. By default, when we create a container, or excuse me, when we create an image, we have an empty image. There's really nothing inside there, no infrastructure, no programs that we can use to navigate around a file or folder system. There's nothing we can use to download or install or configure dependencies. There's nothing in there. So the purpose of specifying a base image is to kind of give us an initial starting point or an initial set of programs that we can use to further customize our image. So that is the purpose of that first line, the from Alpine. We said that we wanted to use the Alpine Docker image as kind of an initial operating system or a starting point for the image that we are creating. Now, your very initial follow-up question might be, well, why did we use Alpine? What is Alpine? So that's a good question. Another brief aside. Why did we use Alpine as a base image? Well, back to you, I'm going to kind of pose a question. I'm going to say to you, why do you use Windows or Mac OS or Ubuntu or some other Linux distribution on your personal computer? The answer is that you use any particular operating system because it kind of suits your needs. Windows might have a program that you need to use your computer effectively. You might use Mac OS because it has a built-in terminal, and that's really nice for you. In other words, you use one of these default operating systems because it has a set of pre-installed programs that is useful to you and what you are trying to accomplish. So we just made use of Alpine as a base image, as kind of like an operating system of sorts, because it includes a default set of programs that are very useful for what you and I are trying to accomplish. We are trying to install and run Redis. And the Alpine base image has a set of programs inside of it that are very useful for installing and running Redis. The command that was, or the program that was most useful for you and I for installing and running Redis was found on the second line of the Docker file. We had said run apk add update Redis. This is not a Docker command right here. This line has nothing to do with Docker whatsoever. APK is a program called Apache Package something, I think. It is a package manager that comes pre-installed on the Alpine image. and we can use that package manager that is built into Alpine to automatically download and install Redis for us. So we made use of Alpine because it had this package manager program automatically included inside of it. And so it made it a very convenient thing to start with inside of our Docker file. All right, so I think we got a better idea of what's going on with this from line, and I think we've got kind of a reasonable idea of at least the right-hand side of this one, the actual like command or line of code that was executed, but we still need to have a better understanding of what run over here is doing, have a better understanding of what command is doing, and kind of put this entire equation together. So quick break, we're going to come back to the next section and do a little bit more of a deep dive. So I'll see you in just a minute.